Hello, welcome to the 4 a.m. It's actually 4:01 a.m., so it's
Yeah,
very
four to
fitting this
one.
time. It's not 4:36 p.m. like last time. Today I'm
Well, it's
joined.
still 4 a.m.
Yeah, well, now it's 4. Well, last time we did it in like the afternoon. That's why.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
we did
that's
it like
different.
right around dinner time. Well, old people dinner time. Today I'm joined. Well, this morning, kind of. I'm joined
Yeah.
by Felix. If you guys remember Felix from last time.
Bonjour.
And my good friend Christian, whom we call Davis. We call
Hello.
him
Davis.
Davis.
Yep. Hello.
So, what's up, guys? How's your days been going?
Ate a pencil for lunch.
All
Tasted
right,
tasted all
Um.
right.
Oh.
Christian.
So I went into work today, um, and due to coronavirus, apparently we are getting 2 weeks off starting Monday. So,
Ooh, this is nice news.
paid.
Phenomenal.
This is
Paid.
paid too. Yes.
Ooh, ooh.
Which, luckier than a lot of other people. I can say that. So I am thankful. But,
I've been laid off
yeah.
from my other job. I'm glad I have two jobs as a full-time student, but that's irrelevant.
It's fine.
It's it's fine. It's not like I get paid significantly less than before or anything.
And you know what? Just because we're comparing dick sizes, I've been laying on that codeine shit. I don't know how good it is for me, but I hear it's pretty good. I've been
Yeah, man.
swigging that. I've been swigging it.
Have you
It's
tried oxycodone or some of that what they call it, Vicodin?
no, I haven't tried it yet, but I heard that shit's pretty good.
Yeah, man, it's fucking phenomenal.
Like
All
I
right,
can call up my street pharmacist and I can get like a
hell yeah,
prescription.
you're
So
back.
this is the podcast. We just talk about all the drugs we've
We
been
just
doing.
talk about shitty fucking jokes. All right, so today I want to talk to you guys about particularly social psychology, things related to aggression in and out groups, relationships, and then maybe if we have enough time at the end, because I don't like making these podcasts too long, we'll jump into the realm of emotion, and we'll talk about some types of motivation.
Well,
So
that's good. I'm a very aggressive person.
Man, fuck
So
you.
to start off, I want to say this, and that I don't really like the topic of social psychology because of a lot of the topics that are in social psychology. The topics that I'm talking about today are like ones that don't have a bias. Like a lot of topics in social psychology have like a really, really strong liberal bias, in my opinion. Like they
Hmm.
have like, like social psychologists are very like, oh, you know, um, there's this thing called the IAT. It's a, let me just find the proper definition here for you. The IAT, I'll explain it. The IAT is basically a implicit association test. So I think it was made by a student at Harvard, and what they did was they took pictures of different groups like old people, young people, black people, white people, races, ethnicities, all these kind of stuff. And they also took a bunch of words that associate with good and bad feelings like love, hate, pitiful, shame, disgrace, achievement. And what it was it tracked your reaction time to matching associating terms with pictures. So I did one of them, and it was do you have a bias toward black or white people? And like it's like, okay, can you? So I'll put a picture of a black guy in this corner and a white guy in the other corner, and you're going to throw all the good words into the black corner and all the bad words into the white corner. And then it did the opposite. It's like, okay, all the good words in the white corner, all the bad words in the black corner. And so your reaction time would dictate whether or not you had a bias. And so, like, of course, like at face value, this has like a lot of flaws. Like, just because you have a bias doesn't mean that this is what you actually believe, you know?
Yeah.
Like you say something and it's not like that's concrete, like what you believe in, your, set in stone kind of philosophy, right? But it's like maybe you grow up around young kids all the time, or maybe you grow up around old kids all the time, so you have like you attribute good words to like older people because you're just more used to it. Like those neurons in your brain fired more often when you are around the older folk, you know what I mean?
or that exposure could also lead to a general distaste for that group of
Yeah,
people.
right. Like so you
Like,
just
oh, oh, you've been around a bunch of old people. You know how they are. Yeah, I don't like them for that reason
yeah, you have
because
like you
whatever
habituate
whatever
yourself with
reason.
that people, right? Yeah, and
Hmm.
so your dishabituation with the younger generation, if you're less exposed to them, is like a fresher look, so you like it better, you know. So like the implicit association test, our professor talked about it in class a little bit. He said it's not a diagnostic tool. However, it measures biases. I like disagree with this opinion. I think that it doesn't measure any kind of underlying bias at all. I think it just measures how you've been exposed to the environment. I think it just measures like raw reaction time to things that have been um, pre-lined in your brain, and you know humans have a really really strong developed frontal cortex and prefrontal cortex and frontal lobe, and that's where all of the critical thinking is found in humans, or in all animals actually with a brain. If an animal didn't have a brain, that's fucked up. Like
This
bacteria, I mean, you know, like just you get what I mean. But like the frontal lobe of humans is particularly developed, and that's where critical thinking is. That's where
Mhm.
we can do philosophy, high level calculus, all these other like phenomenal things, right?
Mhm.
So if that's not the thing that's being worked, I don't think you're making the right, like a conscious decision or the right decision that you're choosing, because you're not choosing it. You're just doing it
Yeah.
automatically, right? Do you guys have any opinions with that?
Not really.
Not really. No, Christian Davis.
Um so basically what's being said is you're in this experiment and it's saying that you have these biases because he's telling you to say this and that to a certain group of people,
Yeah, you're
correct?
trying to move the words to each side that like it just checks how fast you move like good words or bad words to one group or another. But it's very binary. It's only two groups ever. You don't
Yeah,
get
well, I
like
mean, there's a problem with that being, if it is black and white, sure you're you're growing up has a lot to do with that, but it's also, I would say, 90% of it is what is perceived on media. Um,
yeah, that's another big thing. Like it's not even like what you want to
what
be
you are
exposed to or
around,
what you're around. It's like
yeah,
things just like they happen to come about in your everyday life as like time goes on, you know? Like media is a really big one.
right.
Entertainment's another. I guess entertainment and media kind of like overlap a lot, but I think they're separate enough. Like you see you know the Black Panther movie?
Hmm.
I think 50% or like 60 or 70% was like all of the like the cast, not the casting, the supporting stage workers and all the technicians and everything, like all of the behind the scenes kind of people. It was like a high percentage of African American people, right?
Hmm.
And that's okay, like that's fine, I don't really care,
Yeah,
right? But it's like if you're gonna if you did that because you're intentionally segregating, useful workers because they're not black, that's kind of fucked up, because you're
yeah. And another thing with that experiment, it's different if you're per se uh, saying these things to a group of people that you identify with. Like me, if it was with a group of white people and a group of black people that I'm, saying these things towards, I myself are going to say more things just in general, either good or bad, because I know not, I don't know white people because I've been exposed to them, but I know white people because that's who I am. I
yeah,
mean, because
like
I haven't, I don't have that certain mentality of a black person or
Hispanic,
just
white, or
exactly.
not white. Well, you're
Like
white, but
if it was like, say, I'm reviewing a group of Chinese people and a group of Indian people, that it's going to be equal on both sides, good
yeah,
and
you'll
bad,
feel
because
indifferent.
right, because I don't have a preference, obviously. It's
Feels
just when I say something about white people, it's just like, oh yeah, I know those people because that's me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I wanted to also like now that you mention that, that's a really really good point. Um, Felix, you're Chinese. Um,
Mhm.
there are two flavors of Chinese. There are Cantonese and Mandarin. Are there any like I think there is like a like is is Taiwanese considered Chinese?
Uh, yes, yeah. Um, it's complicated. Yeah, yeah. They're considered Chinese. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you like? So we were talking earlier. You speak both Mandarin. Well, you don't speak Mandarin, but you
A little
understand
bit.
it. You speak a little bit.
I'm not
Um,
fluent in it, but
it has like half as many intonations, and so like there's small
yeah.
minor
So
differences and stuff, right?
yeah. So for example, a word, it has in Mandarin it has four ways, or a character has four ways of pronouncing it. So um, let's just say you want to say mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in Cantonese, I would say ma. Um, well, and you can change the meaning of it depending on how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Uh, so a common example is in Mandarin at least. A common example is you can say ma 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 ma,
Mm-hmm.
and basically
Those are the
it's
four like accents,
yeah.
right?
So
Yeah.
exactly, yeah, they're four accents. So basically, you can be calling someone mother, or you can be calling them a horse.
Oh, oh,
So
that's see. This is very similar. Like in Arabic, Arabic is like the languages are almost identical to different dialects. Like my kind of like Palestinian kind of Arabic. Like I'm from Syria, right? But it's the same thing as Palestinian Arabic is very similar to Lebanese Arabic. There's almost no difference, right? And then it's very similar to Egyptian Arabic. But Egyptian Arabic, they don't pronounce. So we have a letter called kha. You
mhm.
you kind of like scratch the back of your throat, kha.
Yeah,
Um,
huh.
yeah, there you go. See, everybody can do it.
The
It's
white
like
guy got it.
Hachu. um, they don't have that in Egyptian. They have ga. So the word for chicken is dejaj. So instead of dera, it's dejaj with like a J. Instead, they'll say degaga. But to me, that's like hilarious. Like, cause it's like degaga. This sounds stupid, right? But it's like these small differences. And in Arabic, we have this word hamama. You change it a little bit, it goes from meaning swan, I think, or white bird, to penis.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah, it's
hey,
just
look at that penis over there in the river.
like kids would like say that with the intonation of penis instead of bird, right? But it's like the same word, and you pronounce it almost identical in many contexts, right? It's just
hmm
the small differences, right? So I wanted to bring this back to you, Felix. Are there any like underlying differences between people's appearances, specifically Cantonese and Mandarin, and even Taiwanese?
Um, since China is such a big country, people will say yes because different people from different regions have like, I guess, different genes. But like, if you as a foreigner, or just like even some locals, like sometimes you just go up and like it's really hard to like point out, oh, this guy's from mainland China up in the north region. It's hard to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I guess there are some differences.
There are some. So let's
Yeah.
say so now that we like know that there are, if you were to compare these two, and you would put into like an IAT, do you think that you would have any particular bias? Like I know asking this question is kind of weird because you don't really know, and you think you don't have any biases. Like, oh, you know, I don't think that I'm biased towards one side or the other, right? And there's that
hmm
whole thing that I talked about earlier with like thinking things through before you actually make your decision to
hmm
say something, right? But some people do have biases. Like if you don't like a particular kind of person or something, like that's fine as long as you don't actually act out on those like beliefs, right? Because you,
And
in the
like your
end,
intention matters.
yeah, right. Like in the end, you should only judge someone by the merits of their character and their vices and virtues, as opposed to, oh, freaking Canadian people are so nice, like screw them or something like that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, so what do you think? Do you think that these language barriers, because primarily they're language barriers, right? Um, between like
Uh,
Mandarin and Cantonese, would create some sort of bias between one or the other, or do you think that
uh,
like people are indifferent to like one or the other, and there's no real way to tell?
Currently, actually, there is, I guess, resentment for, I guess, I guess Mandarin speaking people in Hong Kong, simply
Really?
due to the, I mean, yeah, simply due to the current, I guess, political
Oh,
situation.
the government
Yeah,
and
the
stuff.
riots.
Ah, okay,
Yes.
okay, okay.
Currently, there is a lot of hatred towards mainland Chinese people in Hong Kong,
Oh.
which is where a a big portion of Cantonese speakers are located. But generally speaking, I guess if you take that out of the equation, not really.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, yeah, I think yeah.
Okay. Cool. So yeah, I just wanted to introduce you guys to like that kind of kind of group centered mentality. I guess it wasn't really about groups, but I want to transition into in group out groups. Um, because there's this really cool study that happened. Let me just pull up the specific facts for you guys. Um, so there was a study that took place, and like this study has been done many times, so I'm just gonna say the experiment in general. What they did was they gave people a different colored. They took a group of people and they assigned people different colored shirts and armbands, right? And so some people would be part of one group, some people would be part of another group. Generally, there were two or three groups, I think. And so you'd be assigned a random shirt. It didn't matter like who you were, what you were, whatever you did, but you'd be assigned just a random color. Generally, you would end up associating with people of the same color shirt, no matter what. You don't even know the person, but it's like, oh, Davis, you're wearing a red shirt. I'm wearing a blue shirt, but Felix is wearing a red shirt, so I like instinctively associate with Felix more, and I have
Yeah.
in-group behaviors and in-group tendencies and prejudices and discriminations towards Felix, and I have out-group tendencies, discriminations, prejudices towards you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So generally, these out-group prejudices and discriminations were of a negative connotation, and so I would show almost resentment towards people of not my shirt color
Yeah.
if we were like in a group that if we were in some sort of controversial discourse, or if we were in some kind of conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really, really interesting because um, that could also talk about race, right? So people like they try to be super cautious of what they say, and they try to be as particular as possible and use their the way they speak in order to be like so in order to fit the norm, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel that you end up fitting in, do you notice like any of your peers actually having this in group out group kind of feeling? Like I know at work, excuse me, I know at work when I did the AV stuff, if I was put on lighting assist, right? So I was helping set up the lighting stuff. I would I don't even know why. I would instinctively associate, oh, okay, Kelly's on my team, Chad's on my team. Those guys are the really, really strong guys, or those guys are the really, really this. Like I would associate a subject to them, and it didn't matter. Like it wasn't they're strong in different fields too, but it just happens that they were like lighting techs, and assisting with the lighting setup, and I did that, and I noticed that like now that I think about it, and you can see it like between your friends, like or not even friends, like my coworkers, like the staging guys would hang out with the staging people. You know, if I was offloading the truck, I would hang out with people, or people would hang out with me who were also offloading the truck that day. Like there was like
Yeah.
a 9-hour setup, which is one of the longest setups I ever did. It was for this crazy wedding, but it was just, it's kind of like interesting how people like immediately cling on to
Like,
groups. Just
yeah, oh, you do, staging, and I do staging too. We're going to be close because we do the same thing, and I'm not going to know.
and it's the same day. It's the same minute. You know. Do you?
Yeah.
So I want to direct the view to you guys. Do you guys have any examples of this that you see, like maybe in media, games, your
Well, not so
coworkers?
much examples. I mean, it's if if you only knew these people for a day, and the boss, the overseer of this whole operation, is going to say, you two are on stage and you two are here, here, here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a need to have that group, so you're not talking to yourself. You because people want that human interaction, good or bad. Um, and so they want that. So they create these groups, um, just so they're not left out. Um, and it's less of perception of the other groups, um, because I think that comes more with time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just a need for people to have these human interactions.
Well, wouldn't not having groups result in more human interaction since there are more people that you can communicate with?
Um,
Mm, I
well,
don't think so
that's
actually.
Well, because
fair.
you said good and bad. We're not
Yeah,
specifically talking about good.
But like here's the thing though, like when you associate with your own group, you tend to have good-natured behavior and ideas towards them, like regardless of context, and then negative ones generally towards outgroups. So there was, I'll give you guys another example, aside from the shirt and armband one, just to put like a different perspective. Um, so you and a group of people were told to guess how many gumballs there are in this jar.
mm,
And so once you were assigned your once your guess was compared to the answer, you were given the uh, the term overestimator or underestimator.
hmm
Being told you're an over or underestimator will end up swaying the way you look towards the person of the opposite guess. And so, like, people generally tended to act negatively towards the group that they weren't a part of, and positively towards people who thought like them,
hmm
right?
yeah,
So it's like the smallest things that change the way you look at someone, even just based on guessing how many gumballs there are in this jar, you know?
yeah.
So I think there is some underlying good and bad um, behavior. But if you have something to add, Felix, just to clarify your point, maybe.
Um, hmm, well, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess people usually enjoy things that they are more familiar with, and that's probably why they do that. But um, while I was thinking about your examples, like maybe I'm just like a analytical person or something like that. But if it were just like your example of the gumball thing, like I don't think I would go, oh, uh, this person who guessed or who is a what were the terms you used?
Overestimator,
Yeah,
underestimator,
like
or overguesser, underguesser.
yeah. So like
It's whatever you want.
if this guy is an underguesser, I wouldn't go, oh, why is this guy doing this? I don't like this guy. No, I would go, why is this guy doing this? Am I doing something wrong? You
Yeah,
know?
see, it's like
Yeah.
it's self reflection is a big part of this. Because like a lot of the reason why people have these negative tendencies is because of a lot of group oriented behavior, right? Like you know, the bystander effect. That's a big
Mhm.
one. That's a big group behavior because people will end up, you know, they'll be like, oh, somebody else will help, or oh, that guy's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was this I forgot her name. It was this foreign individual, or at least this individual with a foreign name in New York. She was like assaulted, or she was badly injured in this alley, and people were looking from their balconies from the street, um, and they were like, it's almost as if she didn't exist because people just assumed that somebody else was taking care of her, but she stayed
Right.
there, and then
Yeah,
and then when people finally came to her aid,
it was too
it was
late.
too late. Why can't I can't remember it for the life of me. But do you know that example? Or have you heard of that case before?
I think I've heard of it before. I mean, I've heard of. Uh, I mean, there's you see all the time the live leak stuff from stuff from China.
Yeah, yeah,
I
or
saw this thing in particular.
maybe not. China would be a
It
good
was
example.
a news article and a video to go along with it. It showed this elderly lady. I think she fell down a hole or something,
Hmm.
and a younger dude uh, helped her out of the hole. But the way the laws work in China is that if you help out, uh, the person that you helped out can actually sue you for more damage. So in that case, it's best to leave that alone. Um,
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
yeah.
That's sickening.
Hmm.
Like like people are supposed to help. Like humans are
like
like the
like
most.
people are dying on the street and people are just walking by
Yeah, it's but you can't
because
help
they don't want
them.
to.
Yeah, you don't want to get in
Right.
trouble. You don't want to get like
May I
arrested.
add on?
Go for it. Yeah, if there's something we
Um,
said.
so yes, this is all true, but what makes it even worse is there are a
What's
lot of
worse?
scammers. Yeah, there are a lot of
Oh
scammers
yeah, that's
that
I see a lot
that
of videos like that, like where people
yeah.
jump in front of cars. Well, I mean, it's not
Um,
it's not the same thing, but I see a lot of scammers. Like it doesn't have
it's
to be
pretty
in
much the same
China
thing.
too. It could just be like anywhere people want like insurance money. It's like,
Well, I guess it's worse in China because
you think?
as yes, as Davis said, because the laws allow for this, I guess, exploitation.
Hmm.
Um, people are not punished when they do this kind of stuff, and like when you go to like the streets of a major city in China, you will encounter scammers regularly. Like it's just like
Do
a
you think?
normal occurrence.
Do you think this is some kind of like de-individuation though, like where people lose their sense of self almost and kind of have that, you know, that like gang mentality where you follow some other group's philosophy instead of your own,
I'd say
because you
it's
lose.
that tied with greed.
Okay.
You know,
Oh yeah,
it's
for
just
personal gain too.
yeah,
But you
because
you lose your sense of self,
Not
right? Like,
not necessarily, because well, my whole family is Chinese, and I have regular discussions with them on this specific topic. Um, you just like people in China have this thing called getting over the day, right?
mhm.
Um, you just want to get your day over with, and if you, I guess, if you see someone crying, helpless on the street, like your first instinct is I want to help them, right?
Yeah,
But
that's human nature, right? Like
yes,
people, well, okay, you know what? I'm not gonna say people are altruistic because there's I agree with my professor. I don't think there's anything known as true altruism. But go on. Sorry, I'll get to that later.
um, so yeah, like whenever I visit China, and like when I was a kid, I see homeless people, and I'd ask about them, like, shouldn't we help? Shouldn't we give them money? Because I would ask, I'm like, what is well, once saw this homeless man with his child. I think I was 8 or 9,
Hmm. Hmm.
and this child was like maybe 6, and his father and him were on the streets, and in chalk they had written, "Please, I need help. Something something. I need money for medical care." For my child and my wife who is in the hospital or some stuff like that, and they had all their belongings out on the street, right?
Hmm.
I asked why are people just walking by and ignoring them? And the answer that I keep getting for things like these is it's because you just simply don't know if they're honest or if they are scammers. And
Oh man, is
simply
that really the nature
yes.
around that issue? Oh man, disingenuous nature is
Well,
I
always a
well
I
here's
have
killer.
well here's why. Here's why most people, if not all people, choose not to help. It's because like most of the time, I'd say people would say 90% of the time, um that they believe that they like these people that probably need help are scammers. And I don't know the actual percentage of like like how many of these cases are actually scammers, but there are so many stories and articles that are covered in China where so and so person has gotten scammed here and here, right? Or
Hmm.
like it's on social media on WeChat, basically China's Facebook. There are these like these stories and stuff on how this like not even in real life, even things like, oh, this website has scammed a bunch of people selling fake food. That's actually like a thing. Like people were selling fake eggs. People were using or people were reselling used I guess pig oil. So
Oh my
they
god.
yeah, like there is some horrendous stuff that has
That's
come out
that's
onto the
it's not
news.
like it's not like I'm getting like squeamish. I don't really get squeamish. It's just like I'm like trying to visualize like I can okay, I can understand why, you know. Like most common reasons for like why people do certain things is like personal
Right.
gain, right? They have some sort of objective, right?
yeah.
But it's
Of
like
course.
why go to such lengths to do it is what I'm like what are like
To do
to just
to
do
do
bad things, you know, like sometimes like if you really want to get your anger out on someone, and somebody has access to a firearm, it's the easiest thing to do if you're crazy enough and like just stupid enough to do it is you shoot
Yeah.
them, right? Like that's like that seems like the logical thing if you're like a sadistic psychopath, right?
right.
But it's
Um
like people will go to such lengths to make, you know, these attempts to like hurt people, you know. Like is like what do you think?
um I think during well I know that people just there are good eggs and bad eggs everywhere, right?
And fake eggs, yeah.
Well, then fake eggs.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess. Right. But I guess it doesn't help that the government doesn't it seems like the government does not punish these bad eggs in China. I'm sure they do. But I think the public's trust in one another has gotten so low, and this isn't only because of the current day scammers and things like that. I think it goes back to, well, I don't want to get too political here, but I think it goes back to the Cultural Revolution of China, where the government basically told everybody to basically spy on your neighbors and report them if they did anything bad. And it got to a point where um, children were reporting their parents for really, I guess, trivial stuff,
Hmm.
Yeah.
like like oh, this person is playing mahjong, and usually when you play mahjong you gamble. It's like playing poker, right? You don't have to, but it's just you do it. And since like gambling is illegal, they would get like a very harsh punishment as an example. They would like be set as an example, right?
Hmm.
um and I guess ever since then, people's trust in like I guess their fellow neighbors and just like citizens of like their neighborhood,
Hmm.
like their trust has just gotten very low.
And I want to wrap that back around to, I mean, it really comes down to it takes one person to ruin something good.
Oh yeah,
I
like
mean, like going back to panhandlers, you know, there are people that are out there that need that financial support from passerbys, and then there's just people that are out there just to make money because they don't want to work.
they're
Uh,
just they've like
I there was I heard about this somewhere. That's I don't know if it's 100% true, but
Go for it.
this is what I heard. So apparently, some dude in the U.S. said that he went to Houston, Texas, I believe, and he panhandled for I want to say 2 weeks. He panhandled for 2 weeks downtown Houston. He made $200,000 in that 2 weeks,
Wow.
I am
and
familiar with the story.
200,000?
yeah, $200,000
Dude, I'm in
in the two
shock.
weeks.
What? That's wow.
And so I mean, it goes to show that some there are people that could greatly benefit from uh the financial support of people just walking by,
Yeah.
and then people that want to ruin it, they blow their chances out of the water because they want to be selfish.
Oh my.
Like I've been working at Toyota for uh 5 years now.
Mhm.
When I take a different route to work, but I used to take one route to work, and every single day for like 3 years when I took this route to work, I saw the same dude standing on one of the exits off of one of the main roads from
Mhm.
Lexington,
Yeah.
standing there every single day, every single day.
Could you
And,
finally tell? Did you come to a conclusion or actually
well, I,
finish your.
I I mean, it's more of just like I see that every single day, and I just go, "There's sure if you don't have the qualifications, I guess, but there are plenty, and I know people like to bitch and whine about, oh, there's no opportunities for me. There
No,
are
that's
there
fucked.
are
No, there's
plenty
so
of
many.
opportunities to even get a minimum wage job,
Yeah, like
to
start
even make that little
somewhere.
bit,
You
and
start somewhere, you build, you know?
it just it's so lazy to see that, because you start to see that at first off, and you go, oh, he needs help. I want to help him. 3 years down the road, I'm looking at him like, wow, this dude's a lazy piece of shit and needs to
Yeah.
get a job.
Like it's understandable like okay, maybe you can't or you have some kind of condition or there's something that's like contingent on you not being able to do it.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
I understand, but
90% of the panhandlers have don't have anything restricting them from
yeah, I
getting a
know. It's
job.
just like a lot of the time it's like people don't even want to try, you know?
Yeah,
Like at least like it's I don't know. Some people like when they've lost it, they don't people are lazy, you know. It's not
yeah,
and it's not even about laziness, it's about like the the fastest way to get like pleasure again, you know, like the fastest way to get back into where I was. So yeah, no, like I like 100%. That's just like, you know, the first time around it's like okay, I'll help you out, you know, I'll give you a little, like I'll give you a little bit, and hopefully by the end of like the today or the week or you know the month you'll have
yeah.
something to work to start from, you know, like get yourself like a room, some shelter,
Right.
get
And then
yourself
a
a
month
job.
later, and then they haven't done any of that, and it's just like, wow, I'm not gonna help you at
Yeah,
all
it's
because
like
you've wasted
okay,
my efforts.
like it's like okay, you know, I'm starting to believe you less, and it's like day
Yeah.
after day after day it's like okay, this guy's he's quite literally, you know, living his life here, and
Yeah.
this is
And I've seen another
his
thing
income.
where it's, people are like, "Hey, can I have a handout?" "Oh, sorry, I don't have any cash on me." And they whip out a smartphone with a square attached to it.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like what
yeah, like the
are you even
the
trying to
credit
hide
card thing.
anything?
It's like what the it's like what?
Right.
Like,
And you see that too. Like, this man that was in my example, uh I would just be driving, and then I'd see him turn around from the traffic, whip out his phone, do something, put it in his pocket, and turn back around with a sign.
oh my god.
And it's like you just don't want to do anything about your current
I saw
situation.
a
You want to,
picture very similar to that. It's like some guy was sitting on like against a store or something, and he had
yeah,
a cardboard sign out, and then underneath the sign behind it, he was just like on his phone scrolling through something, or I don't know
yeah,
what he was doing, but he had like a freaking new iPhone. I was like what?
yeah,
It's like the this like just the 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 what's the word I'm looking for? The lengths people go to just avoid like aversive
avoid responsibility.
yeah, like aversive
That's I mean,
stimuli
that's the thing.
or
It's just
pain or whatever. Just it's like, gotta get your hands a little dirty sometimes, right? It's not literally dirty, but get yourself some kind of responsibility. Like,
yeah.
have a moral, have some sort of like
And
inclination of
I
what
mean,
it means to
you
be
could tie that
human.
around to in group, out group. It's just that people with jobs, they see panhandlers as just lazy, good for nothings. And I mean, it would also be an in group, out group thing within panhandlers, is because you have panhandlers that are out there trying to make ends meet, because they can't do anything about their current situation right then, and then you have other people that are like, I'm just out here to make money from people and not do anything for the rest of my
Yeah,
life.
like that's a big one. Like people seeing panhandlers now, like, you know, it was like first it was solidarity, like, oh, this guy lost his job, I'll help him out, give him like a little chip, give him a little chip to stand on, right?
Yeah.
But then it's gone from solidarity within humanity, and it's flipped its coin to just averting from panhandlers because you don't know which, like, who's who. They all look the same. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's, yeah. Oh man. Well, I guess that's a good transition to the last topic that I'll talk about, because we're hitting the 40-minute mark, and I'm very, very glad because we've talked a lot. It's good.
Yeah. Good work.
So, yeah, good work, guys. So I want to transition to relationships, and specifically how people get to liking you, and how people are, I guess, in relationships, and it doesn't matter like what kind of relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to start this off with how people start with first impressions. So let's say, Christian, when you first,
Yeah.
like, could I ask you some personal questions about your significant
ahead.
other? So
Yeah.
where did you meet your significant other?
On Tinder.
Tinder.
Yeah.
What was the first thing you noticed? Like the first thing that like you came to your head as soon as you saw her?
I mean, obviously, I'm scrolling through all these other girls, and sadly, at this point, it's just me trying to be with someone.
Just
I'm
what's the
lonely.
first thing? Just what's the first thing that
Oh,
comes to mind?
it's just, wow. This chick looks.
There we go.
This chick is pretty.
That's
I
exactly
want I want to meet her, or talk to her.
that's exactly what I wanted to get
Yeah,
at.
and
The
I knew that's
first
what you're
thing,
going for, but
yeah.
it was just like,
Oh, okay. If you knew, then
yeah,
Felix, when you meet someone new, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's
Me.
generally the first thing that?
when you met me for the first time,
What's the first thing that you noticed about Davis?
To be honest, I don't really remember.
Oh my god. Okay.
I mean,
What-
specifically for Davis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just don't remember anything like in particular.
Well, I mean, it was in a Skype call, and then I think
Okay.
I
No.
think
Well.
how
Okay.
yeah.
In person. In person. What
Oh,
do you
in person. I was like, damn, that's a tall motherfucker.
see? It's like first impressions almost always have one strong underlying factor, and this strongest factor is physical appearance. So-
Well, I mean, in this case, I don't think that applies because I've talked to him before for, I guess, years. Years?
Yeah,
years.
I guess
three
that's true.
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like then again, it's like first things people notice, like, it's like, oh, like I this is actually kind of funny because I was interested in this girl at school, and I didn't know her too well, but the only reason why I was interested in her was because I think she looked pretty, right? So that it's like you start to realize, like, oh wow, so I am I really like a scummy like bastard? Like, do I only look at people
Yeah.
for their looks? But no, it turns out they did a study where they took a bunch of undergrad students and they had them all make first impressions with each other, like in a group, and the single strongest factor, 100% of the time, was how would you choose, like how they went about their choosing their like marital partner in the future based on the people in that group, and it was all based on physical appearance, like 100% of the time. So first
Yeah.
impressions, like just full blown first impressions. First time you see someone, you or them are gonna like look at the way that you look, you know, and
Yeah.
it's just a biological thing that we do, you know. The
I
first,
don't I don't think that's true. I think it's usually the first point of contact that you have with with that
no,
person.
but
Like,
first, like the first thing that you notice about someone isn't their
yeah,
personality or, you know, the fact that they like bluebells as
it
their favorite
depends.
flower. No,
Well,
what
like
do you?
it depends. Like what if you're blind? Then you have to like, I guess listen to them first. There's no seeing them at all because you're blind, right? So,
I mean, but see, you're okay.
like, let's just say Tinder did not have pictures. You can
Tinder
only,
had voices.
well, yeah, like you can only solely, I guess, choose whether you want to continue talking to a person. I guess solely on, or based solely on a voice memo that they leave.
Then I
Like,
think Tinder would go downhill fairly quickly because you don't know who you're walking into, right? You could be walking into someone who
well,
doesn't look like you could be walking into a trap, literally. Trap.
yeah, I guess so, yeah.
You know,
But
like,
I
but
mean,
even okay, so let's say you do your talking and stuff. Your first form of real contact is you looking at them,
Yeah.
right? Like able-bodied people, the first thing they do is they look at them. People with visual impairments, unfortunately, don't have that, you know, prime that first instinct, right? Because they don't have that instinct at all.
Yeah.
So,
can I
go for
can
it, whatever
I
you want.
can I reiterate my point?
No, I
I think
understand what you mean, but
um no, but like I just want to make it clear that, like, it's not I'm not saying that I don't think people choose other people not because of their looks. No, I think a lot, like, I think most people, if not all people, do choose, I guess, their interest or their crush based on their looks. But I think that's or I think a large portion of why people do that is because it's it's the first thing that they can do, like,
no, yeah, no. See here, like
yeah.
I think so. Maybe I didn't get my point across. I specifically just meant first impressions. So, like
Hmm.
your first meeting doesn't like you don't even know their personality kind of thing, right? Like you
Right.
see a picture of someone, you see two pictures of, eh, you see two pictures, each a different person that you're interested in. You will 100% of the time go with the prettier one. That's just how it is,
Yeah.
Of course, yeah.
right? So, after you get to know them, it turns out they're a bitch. So you're like, oh, well, I
It's
don't.
a constant fight for, looks and person.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly, right? So the first thing you notice is their looks, and then after that, physical appearance actually drops significantly down the reasons
Hmm.
why you actually end up liking the person, and these are
Yeah.
like genuine things, right? Of course, for people who aren't visually abled, they'll have to resort. So their primary instinct won't be to look at the person because they can't. They'll have to rely on social interaction. They'll have to rely on touch. I'm not sure if smell is one, but if you have a generally really bad BO, fix it
Yeah.
if you can. I mean, if you can't, that's like a medical issue. You should probably see a doctor, right? Like,
Yeah.
but I'm not a medical student. Um, so Yeah, no, like first impressions are always with how you look, if you can look. After
Yeah.
that, after meeting them, it drops. It like
After that,
it's
it depends on you and your
goes
person.
straight to the core of the earth kind of thing,
Yeah.
you know? And then it's like, oh, then you tend to stray towards people who have similar personalities to you, for instance.
Yeah.
So
And
if
I see that like in friend groups too. You know,
that's
just because like this dude might not be, you know, super handsome and like, you know, dresses really cool, but he likes the thing I like. Obviously, this is going back to in groups and stuff, but it's, you
no,
know,
it's like it's exactly how like people
yeah,
are, you know, like the law
people
of
also look
averages.
at like, I want to be friends with him because he's good looking, and then you realize, oh, he doesn't like anything that I like. I'm fucking done with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Felix, I think I kind of overtook you a little bit. Do you want to add anything to that? So like, what do you think? Do you think like so like how do you feel about that? Because like some like first impressions it in the study that they did were 100% based on physical appearance, like when they chose their um, partner just based on how they met the person. But then after talking to the person, they realized like they were different. They were segregating some. Segregating is the horrible word to use. What am I doing?
Segregation.
They were like grouping them right into
Yeah.
people that they liked based on common interest, similar personality. You know, I like you because you know
Separating them.
yeah, they were separating them, right?
Hmm.
There's a whole list of reasons, right? And we'll get to them in just a second. But what do you think? Do you think that um, there are other underlying like things
I
that
think
come with first impressions? Like maybe scent does come with first impressions, but you know maybe
no.
not
I
through a
think
picture. But
in the study or in this experiment, whatever it was, I think it makes sense what happened.
it was just like a social experiment. I hate saying that word.
I think a social experiment, or I think this social experiment,
Okay.
um, I think it makes sense what happened.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm like I guess when you were explaining it, I think it just got my mind like thinking, like what if there was no visual
Yeah,
element?
yeah, no, that's such a strong point though. Like if there
Yeah,
was no visual element, then they'd have to rely on other other ways of contact, right? Like other ways of
yeah,
impressioning themselves firstly,
exactly.
which doesn't it's not a correct sentence, but you get what I mean.
Which
So well,
I've go ahead.
yeah. So like, what if yeah. So let's just say, what if there was no visual element? They would I guess talk to each other, right?
Yeah.
And I guess they would get to know each other's
I'm
personality,
gonna just
and
pause you
then
right there. Christian, did you want to throw in something before you forget it, or?
So I heard, you know, so there was something like this that I heard on, uh there is a blind guy and he has a YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about, um you know, they were sending in commenter questions, and they said, you know, what do you think of people when you first meet them? He's like, well, I since I can't see them, it really just comes down to me talking to them and interacting them.
Okay,
So
okay.
yeah, so
So
you know, it goes,
they don't really have that kind of like
yeah, so
first impression.
it does come down to personality. But I mean, in every sense, someone with normal hearing and sight, it's going to be the visual,
Yeah.
because you're just going to see them first before you do anything.
So
the
we'll
speed of
come
light
back
is
to
yeah, the speed of light is way faster than the speed of sound.
the
I'll
speed
say
of
that
light is
much.
about let me see, 100,000
This
times? No,
fast,
1,000 times faster. No, 100,000. You know
slower.
what? It's fast. Okay.
It's faster.
The speed of
Yeah.
light is like millionfold times faster. So coming back to you, Felix,
Oh
we were
yeah.
talking about how the differently abled would have their first interaction.
Well, I not the differently abled, but let's just say let's alter this social experiment. Let's
Mhm.
just say they can only talk to them first. So once they
So it's
get
like
to
a
know each
blind
other,
experiment. Like
Yeah,
literally
sure.
blind. Well,
Yeah.
there's single blind, double blind experiments, but that's different. That's a
Well,
different thing.
let's just say they're only allowed to talk to them first, right?
Okay, so only
So
talking. You can only talk
yeah,
to them. Ooh,
yeah. So
there's a really interesting there's this reality TV show that's very much like this.
hmm
It's like I saw it on Netflix actually. It was the grooms enter one side of the room, the brides enter the other side of the room, separated by this
well,
foggy glass window,
yeah.
and they can talk to each other. I think it's like through a microphone or whatever, and they can only talk to each other. They've never seen how they look like. They don't know how they smell, height, race, age, what their families are like nothing. They can only talk to each other, and that's exact. I think that's exactly what you're saying, right? Like,
I was thinking more of like a call or something like that, but
oh
yeah,
well,
sure.
I mean, like these guys,
It doesn't
they
matter.
live with the other person for like
Yeah, yeah,
two
yeah.
weeks, 3 weeks, I think. So,
Like it doesn't matter. They just don't have anything other than
it's
talking, right?
not
So,
exactly like what you said, but go on.
but yeah, well, for the sake of the experiment, right?
Okay,
So, um,
I'm gonna just watch this
it,
show later.
yeah.
No, it's
So
disgusting.
what
Go
would be
on.
this? Okay.
No, no. Well,
So
if you see the commercial of the show on Netflix, you'll know exactly what I mean.
what show?
It's like one of those shows that's like, um,
Oh,
oh,
I
here's your
know.
blind date.
Reality. It's like
It's
a
just
reality
reality
TV.
TV. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Um, but yeah. So going back, for this experiment, they can only talk to each other. Once they like each other due to each other's personality, do you think that the personality, just like how they look physically, will go out the window once they see how they look physically?
Oh, hmm. I mean,
Because it's like a
well,
checklist, right?
hmm. See, here's the thing though. Because physical appearance goes down the list, it doesn't get off the list, right? Because it's still there. You know, you still
Of
want
course.
your other person not to look like a fucking honey badger, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that if person A thought person B was, you know, this really sweet and interesting person and they wanted to get to know them, but they weren't something that they would want to date, right? I
hmm
think that person A would probably hold back on those intentions to actually like go out with them and probably rather be a friend if they like the other person like personally, like as a like personality kind of thing, you know?
hmm
I think just like just trying to extrapolate from what we learned in class, really. Like physical appearance doesn't go away, right? You still, like I said, you still want the other person not to look like a dirt bag, right? But um, if you
Well,
go for
well,
it,
here's what I'm asking.
go for it.
You know how earlier you said, once they're finished, like looking at each other and they actually get to know each other, and how you said the physical appearance just gets like thrown
Shot
down the
down,
list.
yeah.
Yeah, shut down. Do you think that will happen with the personality? If
Oh, if
like
the personality was
yeah,
first and then,
yeah, yeah.
hmm, what do you think, Davis? If you have any ideas right now, I'm trying to
Uh,
because go for it.
no, 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 go ahead.
So there's this thing called the mere exposure effect, and it's kind of like a backwards of what you're saying. Um, it's kind of like you see it doesn't even take that much exposure to someone to end up liking them. All it takes is exposure itself,
Mm-hmm.
and it also takes what's it called? It's also beneficial if you have some sort of psychological arousal. So this doesn't mean like literal like, oh, you know, I'm feeling promiscuous right now. But like, you know, if you're starting to feel anxiety and you're exposed to this person, um, you will end up liking them more because more neurons are firing in
Yeah, and
your head.
I saw this when I was still single,
Mm-hmm.
working in Toyota. I was I was around, a couple women,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and at first glance I'd be like, oh, they're not that great. But as time moved forward, I actually saw them different. Like, oh, she's actually pretty cute.
Yeah, right.
And it's just exposure itself got me to think that way. And if I was to see, if I was to say, I'm outside of work, I would be like, oh, I would go back to my thinking like that's just an average person, but it also has to do with me being bored at work.
Yeah.
I would like to I guess welcome you guys to the 5 a.m. podcast.
502 podcast.
I thought that joke was for Davis, not me. Okay.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, like all it takes is a little bit of exposure and like maybe if you can help it, some mental stimulation, you end up like liking this person more, right?
Yeah, and I want to kind of wrap this whole thing together with it's we say, especially in your research, Alex, is we say that the first thing we see is a physical attraction,
Mm-hmm.
but it all sure that's how it was back in the day because that's how you had to meet people. But I'd say in the modern age, it's changed. It's literally just however you come in contact with them first. Like if it's through video games, you hear a sweet voice on the other end. You think to yourself, this chick, speaks really softly. She must be really cute, but she's actually fat and ugly. She's just
She's
nice.
actually 60 years old.
Yeah.
I've actually had that
And
before.
and so
Oh,
it's just however you come in contact with first, I think is ultimately how it is. But physical attraction being number one because that's still how we first meet other people ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just yeah, like relationships are pretty complicated thing, right? So
Difficult, very difficult.
very difficult. Yeah, you would know. Christian
Hmm.
here is Mr. Davis is going to get, can I say it?
Married. Yeah.
Married in January.
Yeah.
Hopefully
next
this
year.
whole corona thing is kind of dying out though.
I'm
This
just hoping for someone to flip
COVID-19.
a switch and zombies pop up.
Oh, dude. Apocalyptic wedding? That'd be sick. Dude, that'd be sick as fuck. Um, but yeah, like relationships of any kind are weird. Um, and that whole like what's it called? Law of averages. Do you guys know the law of averages or the
I've
idea?
heard of it.
It's like
no.
it's like you yourself are the average of your five most closest friends, families, people to your lives. So it doesn't have to be like, oh, I live with my dad, so I, he's one of those people. Like, no, you like if you don't talk to your dad, they're not your closest person. You might live with them,
Yeah.
and they might be a part of it. Like you might get habits from them or biological things like I don't know, asthma. Is asthma what's it called? Congenital? I don't know, but you get what I mean though, right? It's the people that are closest to you personally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But that's a load of shit. Because there's a bunch of research that shows that people's personalities are formed, straight out of the womb. They have temperaments, what they call them. They don't call them like personality traits for babies. They call them temperaments. And so if your baby is behaved is one of the temperaments. The other two temperaments are it's like one that's related to aggression and one that's related to crying, I think. And these temperaments can predict your personality all the way until you're 18 years old, right? And then once you hit adulthood, your personality kind of steadies, right? So
Mhm.
this like idea of the law of averages, sure, you can change. There's such thing as like individual mean level change. There's such thing as like your entire cohort changing as a mean as a as a whole group because some traumatic event happened, like COVID-19, for instance. People grew in solidarity of each other, but instead because
Yeah.
of social distancing, people grew less agreeable, so people became more stern, less nice because they had less social interaction. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
Um,
And I feel we'll probably see that, once this whole
oh yeah, I
pandemic
hope like if I make
wraps
some
up.
sort of if I make some sort of theory, I hope it comes true. Make myself feel better, even though nobody will know.
Yeah. I feel like you will see that. Like we'll finish up this pandemic and we'll see everyone go back to a supermarket, and they just won't talk to each other
Is that
even
what they're
more
used to?
so.
You know?
Yeah, even more so than now, because they're not they haven't had a whole lot of human interaction in 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So I'm gonna end off the podcast today with just one more idea within relationships, and it's particularly controlling behavior. I really like the subject of psychology as a whole because of how easily you can. Well, I wouldn't say easily, but how much you could apply it to your life, or how much you can kind of warp the way you see it in the real world. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, one of the like four of the pillars that I learned back at McMaster for how people develop relationships are based on proximity. This is both like physical proximity, like how close you are to a person literally, and functional proximity. So, like, are you close to them because you're like friends from a long time? Or are you close to them because you're in class and you're not really that close to them?
Yeah.
Familiarity, so how well you know them, either by face or you know by the way that they dress or the way that they eat, or just how they are.
Hmm.
Physical attractiveness, coming back to this one, big one. People tend to like people who look nicer.
Yeah,
And
definitely. And
liking,
people want to be nicer and help out people that look better.
yeah, right. I'm gonna come back to that point in a second. And liking reciprocity. So if you like me, I'll like you more.
Yeah.
Um, that one's a really interesting one because they did this study where um, people had an interview, and the subjects that were interviewed ended up liking the interviewer more um, when the interviewer gave them positive feedback towards positive feedback, like started with positive, ended with positive, when the interviewer gave them negative feedback at first and then ended with positive feedback.
Hmm.
Excuse me. And really, really interestingly, the subject disliked them more when the interviewer started with positive, ended with negative, as opposed to negative to negative. So people
Yeah.
really like being liked. You know, people
Yeah.
don't like to hear that they are bad. But it's
Yeah.
even worse when you were liked and then that reciprocity is taken away,
And
right?
I feel like in this kind of situation, it also has to deal with expectancy. Like, oh, they off the bat they like me already. This whole thing is going to be a cinch, and it
Oh
starts
yeah,
to go
yeah, yeah,
downhill, and then people can't handle it because they thought, oh, what happened? This was going so well.
yeah. It's like you thought because you thought
Yeah.
they liked you at first, but they didn't like you as much.
Right.
And back to that physical attractiveness, people like helping people who look nicer.
Hmm.
I think that's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Lots of people have this philosophy that women can wear whatever they want, free speech. What else do they say, Felix? Help me out.
Uh,
Like,
Putting
okay,
me on the spot. That's not cool, man.
I understand that you want to dress the way you want to dress. I have no problem with you wanting to wear a crop top in -20 degree weather. In American,
But
that's
it says something about your personality if you want to do that,
that's
because
-4 Fahrenheit.
nine times out of the 10, you going out like that says to other people, "Hey, this
I'm
chick
a
is a whore."
Yeah, I'm a slut or I'm a skimp.
Yeah,
But like, and it's like even with guys, like pull your fucking pants up, you degenerate.
yeah.
You know, like saying that's kind of rude, and I shouldn't say that, especially on my own podcast. But it's my podcast.
How do you keep your pants up while you're performing? It's incredible.
Yeah.
No. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
No, it's so that it's easier to take them off for after the performance.
After the performance. Oh
Right.
yeah.
They just got to
Yeah.
jump really hard. Fall.
Oh man, it's like I had this debate with this person on Instagram where it's like, people will like you based on how they see you, their first impression of you. So if if you're going to a business meeting and you show up in a Hawaiian t-shirt, and it's not like casual Friday or whatever the occasion, and it's like a high profile business meeting, and you show up looking the way you want, you're probably gonna get kicked out, right?
Yeah.
And it's like similar on the street. Like, if you wear something that looks provocative, don't be alarmed when guys start to catcall, because all the nasty guys are lurking. They're everywhere, right? Like, there's no helping that. But you can save yourself some of that pain by putting on put on some put on some sweatpants.
Yeah, because you can just hide that shit
You
underneath.
can hide it, right? You can hide it. So if you're gonna walk,
And that also has to deal with, there was a study done where people conceal carried and open carried. When you conceal carry, other people can't see the firearm, so they're fine with you.
Yeah,
But
of
as soon as
course.
they see that, they're like, "Oh, this dude's up to some shady stuff," or
I'm gonna fuck off.
just something or
right?
another. Yeah,
So it's like, if you're gonna walk through the Bronx of New York wearing wearing some tight leggings and a crop top, and you're surprised that you get catcalls, there might, like, I can't help you. Like, you either don't want the help, or you're trying to prove your theory because of a slippery slope, or you have some really good
Yeah.
straw man argument, and you're trying to pick apart my argument because you're walking into like the worst place wearing the worst clothes in order to
Yeah.
prove something that I don't believe in, because it's wrong in normal contexts. When you do something to the extreme, you're gonna get an extreme result.
yeah,
That's all I'm saying. So yeah, those 4 things are really, really big on relationships and how people. So I've actually tried to manipulate people using this strategy, where it was, you can't convince someone to like you. Just like you can't convince someone to like you just by telling them to like you, right? You have to kind of go about your day, your weeks, your months, trying to manipulate the way this sounds really, really
Yeah.
dark and weird, but
and it's also like you have to go out of your way to make sure that they keep thinking like that.
yeah. So
You have to keep up that relationship, or or a facade per
yeah.
se.
So when I learned about this kind of thing, so I wanted to test it out on a friend. So I didn't know the friend too well, but I like hung out with them more often, and I tried to be closer to them, kind of, right? And so I can't change my physical attractiveness, unfortunately. I am trying to change the amount of liking reciprocity that they have towards me, but I can definitely change how much they see me and how close they are to me by getting to know them and them getting to know me. And once you put the conversation on them and let them talk about themselves, they see you in a better light. Like, people like
Yeah.
to talk about themselves. It's like it
Oh,
happens
yeah.
to be, people just happen to like talking about things that they like. And sometimes people like talking about themselves. Sometimes people like talking about their interests. Sometimes people like talking about anything, right? But if you get the other person talking, most of the time when they're with you, they'll generally like you more. And that's just, like, I've seen that. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so just a couple things like that, and I'll get into um, how you can identify different behaviors of people, like how you can see if people have changed in the next episode. We're actually learning about psychological disorders this coming week, so that'll be fun to talk about on the next podcast because that's one of my favorite topics in psychology. I actually want to go into psychopathology and forensic psychology and psychotherapy
Oh,
specifically, but I don't know which field I want to go into just yet. I want to keep my
you want to deal
horizons
with the
broad.
crazies.
Well, it's not. It's just like interesting. It's like
Yeah.
the dark side of psychology is what I like to
Yeah.
call it. Right? It's like how how people really get bent out of shape. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah,
like
definitely.
but I also feel for them, so well, not literally, like I don't know how they feel, but I want to help, and I want to learn about them, and
Right.
it's what interests me the most. That, and like I'm really interested in law as well, but law school's hard and I have to try a lot for that, so I'm going to keep trying, and if I do well on my LSATs, maybe I'll have more options to look at. But yeah, I'd like to thank you guys so much for joining me on this very, very early morning. It is
No
now
problem.
currently 5:17 a.m. I wanted to make this 30 minutes, but turns out it went up to, I'll just drag the window in, an hour and 16 minutes. That was a wonderful podcast, though. I really enjoyed that. So thank you both very, very much. Do you guys have any closing thoughts, things do you guys want to say? I know I'm pretty hungry and need to use the washroom, but you guys anything else?
Um,
Celebratory wank.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
Okay.
This episode was not brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends.
This episode was not brought to you by Squarespace. Um, I don't have any
Audible.
sponsors. No, unfortunately not.
Well, it might be brought to you by Inaudible, like the first episode.
I tried my hardest to edit that one. Okay.
That was my fault. I think
No,
I
no,
held
it's
the
okay.
mic
It's
just
okay.
bad.
It's okay. But yeah, like I said, this is the third time. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and yeah, I hope next week's or not next week. God,
Next episode.
next episode is just as interesting as this one.
It's next
Um,
week.
have a good morning.